Welcome to the Beauty in Battle podcast, where we talk about winning in marriage by waging a war. I'm Jason Benham. I've got my girlfriend / wife, Tori Benham, with me, and we are here to talk to you about how Satan tries to get you to fight face to face with your spouse, but God designed you to fight shoulder to shoulder against Satan so that you can win in your marriage. Fighting together draws you together. We cannot wait to jump in. So here we go. So today we're talking about the 4 habits of joy-filled marriages. And that is actually the title of a book, a really good book that I have yet to read, but I have read the reviews on it, and I've read the synopsis and summary of it, and it is strong.
It is really strong. You just showed me this, and we've been reading up on it, and I'm like, this is good stuff. This has really, really been helpful for me.
And I love it because it's all based on brain science.
Yeah, which I'm all about.
Yeah, we all want to figure stuff out. But anyway,
Why do I do it?
I dove in, and Tori and I both, and we're going to share these with you, the 4 habits, and we're going to give you some of the brain science that we've learned through this book, and we're going to talk about it. And
let's do it.
So it's really strong. But before we do, I got a great song. I picked this one out, and this one is a country song, which I love country. It's newer country. Younger guy named Hunter Hayes sings this song, "Still Fallin'."
Oh, I love this one.
And he's good. I like the kid. You know, his voice isn't my favorite. Like, I like John Michael Montgomery and Garth Brooks and George Strait. But
his voice isn't my favorite.
It's not. But he's just a young kid. No, but listen, the words are awesome.
I think his voice is great.
He's talented.
All right,
here you go.
Show him.
Ready?
After all this time, you'd think I'd be used to the pull of your gravity. And after flying so high for so long, who would think I'm still learning, still burning, still falling?
That's good.
Still falling.
Still falling.
Such a great mindset in marriage.
Yeah.
Keep falling.
His voice was good.
Yeah, his voice is great.
It was really good, actually. Yeah, but I love that. I'm still falling. It's like, after all this time, you would think that I'd be used to the pull of your gravity, but I'm not. Like, I'm still falling. That's just so cool. And it's all about a mindset.
Yes.
And that's why I really like what we're going to talk about in our podcast today, the 4 habits of joy-filled marriage, because this is built on the foundation that love is an attachment. And the more joy you build into your marriage, the more you'll feel in love. Right?
You're right.
So if you're like, well, I haven't felt in love in a long time, then what the authors of this book, which is Marcus Warner and Chris Courtney, what they would tell you is that you need to build joy into your relationship, that you need to actually enjoy time with each other.
Right.
That if you build joy into your marriage, then you'll start feeling in love.
Yeah.
And then they have this little phrase they call a joy gap. And a joy gap is the length of time between moments of shared joy. So the goal in marriage, according to the book, is to shorten the joy gap, so that you're always in a place of experiencing joy with your spouse.
I love it.
And when you experience that, then you're going to feel in love.
It gives us agency. It says, okay,
good.
There's something we can do about it.
Yeah.
The joy gap has been too long. It's now we can do something about that and take action.
Yeah. And so they start out talking about some brain science. And here's a little bit of brain science. I'm not going to get into all of it. Maybe on another podcast we'll share some of the other things we discovered, the brain science that we've learned from the book, and some other things that's really important with relationships. But they talk about this thing called the brain magnet. And the brain magnet is a term to describe your drive to bond with other people. And everybody has a desire to bond with other people. You know, I obviously enjoy my bond with Tori and our kids, but I want to bond with my other family members. I want to bond with some of my buddies.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, bonding with other people is something that God put inside of you. And they talk about how you come out of the womb craving attachment. So literally like a baby, and that's why a baby cries.
Right.
A baby's looking to be attached.
Right.
And, you know, it's funny because I read in one of the reviews, Tor, I don't know if you read the same one I did, but they talked about how the book is based on attachment theory.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, attachment. And Tori and I are like, that's a little bit of a trigger word for us because when we were raising our kids, we raised our kids at the time when like Baby Wise had just come out, and it was all about like the bad parts of attachment theory.
Yeah, it was more about coping strategies, like, you know, teaching your kids to learn coping strategies. And really what it was doing is not letting them attach too much.
Yeah, it's teaching your kids how to detach.
Yes. And it kind of has swung the other direction. I think that, you know, there's been some issues, obviously, that have come from that era.
Yeah.
And now it's kind of, you know, attachment theory is really big right now. And all the things that I naturally wanted to do, you know, now are being praised, like co-sleeping. And
you probably want to stop co-sleeping
until the child is, you know, way too old.
You want to stop co-sleeping when the kids are teenagers. No, so we don't throw Baby Wise out, you know, all of it.
Yeah.
You know, there's obviously some good stuff. We have a lot of friends that did Baby Wise, and, you know, with the whole attachment thing, teach your kids how to be totally independent, which is great. You want them to be independent, but attachment is something that you are literally wired for.
Exactly. There is such a balance that we have to be aware of, that, you know, if you let your child who has this need to be comforted and to be held, and you say, no, you just need to learn how to be okay.
Yeah.
Right. Then there's going to be some detachment. They're going to learn that's going to be a learned behavior.
Right.
You taught them.
And people aren't seeing it until the kids are way older.
Right.
I think there was a time Tori threw out all those ideas when Trey, our firstborn, was, how old was he? Was he like 4 months old?
No, he's probably like 6 months old.
6 months old. He's crying, and I'm in the living room. And I'm like, honey, we just read this book, Baby Why you don't go get him. And she's like, but I just feel, you know, as a mom, there's just something I need to check on him or whatever. I was like, honey, you can't like do this. We're going to follow this book to the T. And then after about like an hour and a half,
well, there was
crying.
like this whole idea that you know, at first you can go in and you can check on them and you can comfort them and say, it's okay, you're okay. But if that doesn't work, then they're a strong-willed child, and that just strengthens their will because you're giving into them. Then you need to just let them actually cry it out, however long it takes. So we did this whole process, like step by step. And finally we get to the point where, you know, Jason's like, okay, it's saying you have to let him cry.
Yeah.
So we let him cry for, I think it was like an hour and a half.
It might have been close to 2 hours.
Really, really long. And I was there was
Tori,
I was
she
dying
struggling.
inside. Literally, I think I was crying.
I was like, stand strong, Tor.
And Jason was like, we got this. Finally, he stops crying. The minute, like it had been like 5 minutes, he stopped crying. I ran in just to check on him.
Yeah.
Because something inside of me was like, you know, that instinct. I'm like, okay, he stopped. And I go in there and he is hanging from his leg. His leg had gotten caught in the spoke of the crib.
Yeah.
And he was like hanging.
It was awful.
And I was like, that book was burnt the next morning.
Yeah, no.
No.
Well, he wasn't
really,
hanging outside the crib.
No,
he was still in the crib, but it was very uncomfortable for him.
It was uncomfortable, and he needed us. And anyways.
So anyway.
We totally got off on a rabbit trail here, but
we're talking to parents, though.
That's when we stopped.
Most everybody that we're talking to, your parents. So I guess the moral of the story is take the good, spit out the bad.
Yes,
Don't follow hook, line, and sinker. Any book out there.
Yes,
just
you need to
go with your
instinct. You have the Holy Spirit inside of you. You have an instinct. God gave that to you for a reason. And anything that would say to push through that, I don't believe is a very wise decision.
Yeah. And two, anything that's too systemized, like do this, then do this, then do this, then do this. Just know relationships and people are not systemized.
Yes.
Just use your common sense. So when we approach a book like The 4 Habits of Joy-Filled Marriages, let's use the good stuff, right? I haven't read the book in full, so who knows? But same thing with any book that we read. But I want to go back into the brain magnet because the brain science shows that we come out of the womb craving attachment, and a joy bond is characterized by several key traits. Let me list these real quick. Okay, so if you're bonded with someone, then the authors of this book is calling that a joy bond, which means that you experience joy together. Okay. Here are some key traits that shows that you guys are on a good track. Lots of smiles. You have positive feelings when you're together, or you have positive feelings even when you're thinking about being together. Mm-hmm. You have the security to act like yourself around the other person. That's really
important.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think when spouses are too sarcastic with each other, sometimes that can cause...
Or nitpicking every little thing, and you don't have the freedom to just be yourself. That's a sign of an unhealthy relationship.
Yep.
So take a look at that.
Another good trait is the ability to connect safely at an emotional level where you can feel emotional with each other. And then the sense that when you're with your spouse, you're with your people. Mm-hmm. Like if I could hang out with anybody, I'd hang out with you. Mm-hmm. You're like my people. Now, the opposite of a joy bond is a fear bond. And a fear bond looks quite different. Here's some traits that maybe you're operating out of fear in your relationship. Smiling is rare, where you don't smile at each other. Hiding emotions is commonplace. Mm-hmm. That's never good. When you don't feel like that you can talk with your spouse about some deep emotional things, that's not good. Wearing masks for fear that the other person will not be happy to see you and you can't act like yourself. Mm-hmm. Isolation is normal, where you both just kind of have your own thing. Right.
You're avoiding each other.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And it's good for both of you to have your own thing, but you need to be able to come together. Shutting down when problems arise and losing the desire to be relational, that's not a good sign. And then treating your spouse more like an enemy than a friend. Mm. And an enemy in the Bible is anyone who's crossed your boundary. So you think enemy, look, I've never been an enemy of my spouse. Well, if your boundaries are too high and your spouse has crossed those before, we've talked with people before where, and this was me, where one of my boundaries was we will never be late to anything. Mm-hmm. When we first got married, and I discovered that Tori did not have that same quality. She didn't have that same value. And so we were late to a lot of things. And for a while, man, I was livid with her, and she kind of became my enemy because she was crossing a boundary, until I realized I just need to drop that boundary. Mm-hmm. Like, you know what? It's just not worth it. So now we're late some of the time. We're on time some of the time.
Well, there are things I think that you've compromised with me to be late to, things that, don't really matter as much to be late to. And then there are things that are important and commitments that are really important that I've had to step it up with.
Yeah. Like Christmas Eve church service.
Yeah.
That's a big one. Okay. Now let's get into the 4 habits. So that's a little bit of brain science to give us kind of a foundation, but we're talking about the joy gap and shortening that joy gap. So 4 habits that shrink the joy gap and make joy your default setting in marriage. So it's the 4 habits of joy-filled marriages. Okay, number 1, couples play together. Okay, so play together. The point here is not about what you do, but that you grow the list of ways that you guys can have fun together and that you can share life together.
Right.
Like, how do you grow that list? They just list 2 things. I think this is cool, and I'll list these 2 things: special events and social routines. So special events, obviously, shared hobbies.
Right.
Weekly dates. Mm-hmm. They're big on weekly dates.
Yeah.
It's so interesting that as we talk to couples, the weekly date just always comes up. Mm-hmm. It's always what couples want to do. Very few couples actually do a weekly date, but it is research backed. It is so incredibly important that you get away weekly.
Right. And because you may not feel like it. I mean, oftentimes you're not going to feel like it. You're going to be like, oh, I don't really feel like planning something. But I know for us that when we put it on the calendar and it came, we always had so much fun together. Like it was always needed. And so it's one of those things that I would highly recommend just getting a regular babysitter, put it on the calendar, like as something that you don't really have to think about. It shouldn't be that much work. Like, oh my gosh, I have to try to find a babysitter. No, just schedule it. Try to find somebody that can come a certain night of the week. And so it's on the schedule. You're not even thinking about it, because then when it comes, you will enjoy it. It'll be pleasurable. It'll be fun. And it's not something that, it shouldn't be something that's so much work. And what we have found is that people make it more work than it really should be.
Just go for a walk.
And then then it becomes date night becomes this thing that's not at all pleasurable because it's just so hard to find a babysitter. And so, well, let's, if you can nail down somebody that can be consistent and can come on a regular basis, I promise you when that day comes, you're going to have fun.
Date night idea that won't cost you much money and it won't take you much time. Okay. Go to Krispy Kreme when the hot donut now light is on. Get it before it goes under the glaze. Bring your own cinnamon and sugar.
Yeah.
Put it onto the donut. Eat said donut. Get in the car. Drive back home.
Or
date night.
Or go to Krispy Kreme. Get the regular Krispy Kreme donut full
under the glaze.
Under the glaze. Ask for extra glaze.
Can you re-dip those things?
Do you. Jason likes it with just the cinnamon sugar. That's just not quite sweet enough for me.
It's good. Okay, so Tori's right. Don't get overwhelmed with date night. Just make it easy. Okay, so but they're talking about special events, shared hobbies, weekly dates, anniversary celebrations. But here's what I like what they say about special events. You need to have something that you can look forward to with anticipation.
Yes.
And that was so good for Tori when our kids were younger and I was out working a lot. Tori always looked forward to Friday night.
Yeah. There has to be hope. There has to be something that you're looking forward to.
Yeah.
Something fun. And that's why I think these social events are so important too. Like we're such seasoned people. We love the different, every time the season change, we're excited because we kind of know what we're looking in the summer. We're looking forward to a few vacations that we always have planned. We have, several different ones that we typically go on. Right. And then the fall comes and we're so excited about pumpkin picking and apple picking and all those like special things that
watching
we do
Halloween.
Together. I won't even go there.
Okay. Sorry.
And watching fall movies, fall, all the things that fall brings, bonfires and all those fun experiences that you do together. Like there needs to be this looking forward together to those, we call them anchor activities, right? Like our kids are now in college and we're realizing the importance of anchor activities because now that they're away from it, they're talking about it. Hey, when are we going apple picking? When are we going to be carving a pumpkin together? When are we going to do a bonfire this fall? Like all these like anchor activities that you do year after year after year together, they become hopeful for, they become excited about. And it's the same way in our relationship. Like what are the things that we're doing that are fun and together on a routine basis every year that we're just constantly like, oh, we got to do this. Oh, it's winter. We got to do this, and this.
So that's special events, you in order to play together, which is the habit number one, play together. Talking about special events. They're also talking about social routines, which are certain things you do on a daily basis. For the authors, they list out a couple rules. One, excuse me, they'll stop talking about problems and tasks 30 minutes before they go to bed. Rule number 2, they'll play together and share appreciation before they turn off the lights. But it doesn't matter what the routine is. If you have a routine that's something different than we're going to veg in front of the TV, not say a word to each other. Yeah. Like, what is your routine going to be? Obviously, for Tori and I, one of our routines, walking around the block and we pray for our kids. It's just going to happen.
Right.
No, not every time we've walked around the block, or some days we don't even walk around the block. The goal is to just establish some social routines that you do together. Yeah. Just some things that are staple events. All right. So
one more thing I want to add that I think has been really important for you and I is that, play together is really just anything that's pleasurable together, something that we enjoy, that feels good, right? That we're building these joy bonds was what they would call it. And one of those things is sometimes we really are tired. Like maybe we've been on out of town for several days and we're just wiped out. And we come home and we just want to veg together. That's playing together. Like it doesn't have to. I think sometimes you think, oh, like we have to do something exciting and fun and get dressed up and go out. No, sometimes
put your fat clothes on.
Sometimes playing together and it's anything that's pleasurable together. So it's like let's just veg and just like, let's fall asleep, on the hammock, or it's anything relaxing too. And I think that sometimes you just got to take the pressure off of what it is that you're doing. It's not like it doesn't have to be these like strenuous things together. It could be just watching a movie together.
That's why I love
clothes,
you guys picking a show, and getting into it and having fun. So that's play together. That's habit number 1 is play together. Habit number 2, listen for emotion. Okay. The author's talking about the number 1 problem in marriage is communication. I think everybody out there who knows anything about marriage would say that's probably problem number 1. And what they talk about with listening for emotion is that you've got to learn to validate the emotion before you talk about the issue. Tori and I cannot tell you how important this is. We've seen it with our own marriage coaching and all the couples that we've talked with over the years. And at this point of the last few decades, that you have to validate the emotion before you talk about the issue.
Right.
So validating doesn't mean agreeing with what someone is feeling.
Right.
You don't have to agree with it. You simply have to acknowledge that they are in fact feeling a certain way.
Yes.
It's like, okay, Tori could say, honey, you wore that gray sweatshirt again and I feel nauseous and I feel like I'm going to throw up. Like immediately I can go, well, gray sweatshirt shouldn't make you feel like, I can start talking about the issue. Or I can say, ooh, so sorry that I made you feel that way. Like if I felt like I was going to throw up, I would hate it. Like, okay, boom, you've just validated the emotion there.
Right.
Now I can go in and say, okay, now what is it about gray?
Right. Because a lot of times the instinct is to try to correct the problem. You're bringing me a problem. Let me give you a solution, right? That's sometimes our natural bent would be to look for solution. And this is actually kind of scientifically proven more of a tendency of the male brain, because they're fixers, right? They have this like unique ability, we call it ability.
There you go. Reframe it,
to
Tor.
fix things. And so they're looking for a solution.
Yeah.
And so, but women do it too. I do this too. I find myself doing this with the kids a lot. Like they're telling me a problem and I want to help them to see every angle. I want them to help them see it from the view that I'm seeing it, which would help fix the issue. But I need to first say, oh, so you're feeling this, right? You need to like, what is the emotion? So listen for the emotion. You're trying to figure out what is the emotion behind this complaint.
That's right.
And you validate that by saying, oh, so that makes you feel this way. So they feel heard. They feel like, oh, yeah, exactly. That's how I'm feeling. Okay. And then you can move on past that with giving a solution, but you have to start with validation.
And remember, connect before you correct. Even with your kids, connect before you correct. You're talking to two people here who have done a really good job of correcting before we've connected.
Yes.
And it's not going to end up being a good thing. Now, here's a pro hack. Okay. Google this when you get an opportunity, emotions wheel. So just Google the phrase emotions wheel or emotion wheel. Doesn't matter if it's plural or not. And you'll see this wheel that psychologists have put together that show you the root emotions, okay, that will help you start to label emotions better. Okay, so emotion wheel. So connect before you correct. So listen for the emotion and then validate the emotion before you talk about the issue. If you do that, you're going to be connecting and you're going to make your relationship bigger than the problem. All right, so that's habit number 2. Listen for emotion. Habit number 3, appreciate daily. Obviously, I think you and I probably talk about this more than any other thing in marriage.
Yeah.
The goal of appreciating. Appreciation attracts, resentment repels.
Yep.
So taking time to dwell on what you appreciate about your spouse.
Yeah.
That's different than just saying thank you for something that they do.
Yes.
Appreciation dwells on who they are.
Right.
Right. And the authors say that it's the hidden ingredient that determines if a marriage is strong or weak.
Yeah. I just think that point is so important, that gratitude, there's a difference between gratitude and appreciation. Gratitude is saying thank you.
Yep.
We do this.
Which is good.
So even sometimes without even thinking, you just say it. Thank you for doing that, right? Appreciation is dwelling on that person, dwelling on what you appreciate about them.
Yeah.
This is so important in relationship. It is so important. I think I've talked about this several times before, but there was a time in my life where I felt repelled by one of my kids because we were just going at it all the time. There was constant conflict. And the Lord very lovingly and kindly told me that I needed to dwell on the good in this child, and I needed to just appreciate the good in them.
Yeah.
I had become it had become a habit of mine to think about all the things that they did wrong, and that repels you from. And it was not what I wanted. And I'm like, I want a strong relationship with this child. I want them to feel loved. I wanted to draw near to them. I want them to feel safe with me, right? But my thoughts were doing the very opposite of what they were drawing, the very opposite of what I wanted. They were pushing me away because I was just constantly thinking about the bad.
Yep.
And so I intentionally began to just daily begin to think about the good things in
That's
that
good.
and dwell on the good. And it drew me closer to that person, to that child. And it changed my relationship with them. Ultimately,
Yeah.
it took a lot of time. It took like a lot of time of just making that habit. But the same has been true with you. It's like the more that I take the time to think about it, and we talk about, set up those rhythms to help you to get into that mindset
Yeah.
by listening to music that
Yeah.
will help you appreciate, by maybe, I don't know, having a thank journal.
Thank you.
A
Thank you journal.
A thank you journal.
A thank you journal. Yeah.
Or spending time in every morning, take the first 5 minutes, or going to bed. Well, I love Dr. Amen, what his habit is of going to bed. He lies in bed and he goes through the day and thinks in segments of his day, everything he's thankful for. And he said by the time he gets to mid-afternoon, he's usually asleep because there's so much to be thankful for, right? And
Yeah.
that just helps him to think about and dwell about the good in the people in his life. And it draws him to them. And so it's like, what are those habits that we have of thinking good thoughts about our spouse?
Yes. I love that. And start it early in the morning, connect with your Creator, enter my gates with thanksgiving and my courts with praise. That's what Psalm 100 says, verse 4. And start there. And then start thinking about and recognize that God's not just your father, he's your father-in-law. What thoughts does your father-in-law want you to have toward his son or daughter? It's important. I like this sentence that they said there about appreciation daily. What keeps us from joy is the habit we develop of scanning our environment for problems to fix instead of looking for blessings to appreciate.
Yeah. Wow.
That right there. Let me say that again, because this was really good. What keeps us from joy is the habit we develop of scanning our environment for problems to fix instead of looking for blessings to appreciate. We got to fix that. And so appreciate daily. That's habit number 3.
You'll find what you're looking for.
Yeah. That's habit number 3 in a joy-filled marriage. Habit number 4, nurture rhythm. And what they mean by this is building in times of rest together. This is important, not resting apart. Obviously, you're going to have times of resting apart, but you need to build in times to rest together. And Tori had mentioned this earlier, but the first and simplest reason the joy gap starts to expand, which means that you're not feeling as much joy in your relationship, is tiredness.
Yep.
It's exhaustion. It's hard to build joy when you feel worn out and a lack of margin.
Right.
But without a relational rhythm, your soul begins to wilt.
Right.
Like completely wilt. So you've got to have a routine to start and end your day that nurtures a rhythm that naturally gives you margin with each other. And so it's finding time to rest together. And that rest sometimes involves play. What they said here, that joy grows best when there is a rhythm of high activity, whether that's work or play, and you're doing it with each other, as well as low, restful activity.
Wow.
The key is just to nurture rhythms.
Yes.
Obviously, Tori and I, you guys have heard us talk about this several times. We've done several podcasts on sex, but being able to find out a rhythm for when you're going to come together in physical intimacy and knowing what that rhythm is once a week, twice a week, every 3 days, whatever that rhythm is for you guys, being able to have a rhythm establishes expectations, it establishes boundaries, and it gives you guys an opportunity to rest and experience freedom.
Yeah.
So rhythms in your relationship are extremely important.
So true.
So
good.
Dr. John Gottman said that he calls these master marriages, which for him is any marriage that lasts more than 6 years, because he saw that if most marriages that fail will fail in the first 6 years. Obviously, that's not foolproof, but he said the marriages that last more than 6 years and they still feel connected after that 6 years, he calls them joy bonded. And he said they had developed the habit of appreciation and entering into each other's joys. So you're entering into each other's joys.
Wow.
And that is so incredibly important, because even the Bible tells us that mourn with those who mourn, weep with those who weep. And how does it say it? Rejoice with those who rejoice.
Right.
Like enter into their joy. Like what is the most important thing in your spouse's life right now that you know if it came true or if it happened, they would be elated. They would be over the moon. Then you get in that with them.
Right.
Doesn't matter what it is. And obviously we do that with our kids too.
So
you know,
true.
so you share joys together. And the longer the gap between moments of shared joy in your marriage, the more fertile the soil for resentment. So the key is shorten that gap. How are we going to do it? With these 4 habits. We're going to play together. We're going to listen for emotion. We're going to appreciate daily. We're going to nurture healthy rhythms of rest together. Thank you, authors of the
so
4
good.
Habits of Joy-Filled Marriages. This was a fun little review.
That was so good. Yeah, I'm glad that they ended with that rhythm of rest, because if you're not rested, then you don't have the energy for joy.
Yeah.
And so rest is so important, and getting on the same page with your spouse with what that looks like is really important too, because I think a lot of times, you know, I know at the beginning of our relationship, we weren't in a great rhythm and we didn't really know each other that well.
Yeah.
And so as we began to learn each other, we were able to to read, oh, you know what? He needs a night off. He needs this is a fat clothes and a movie kind of night.
Fat clothes and a movie.
And you begin to learn each other, and it's a beautiful thing when you get on the same page.
This is how you know the age demographic of our audience. When I say fat guy in a little coat, and everybody knows who I'm talking about.
You think everyone who's listening knows?
I
what
think
you're talking
every
about?
single person that I'm talking to
No.
here on our podcast knows the movie that I'm talking about.
No.
Fat guy in a little coat. Richard.
There's 2 people that know what you're talking
That
about
is
right now.
bull. If you know what I'm talking about, reach out to @Jason and Tori on Instagram and tell Tori. Tell her. You know, are you going to give us a recipe?
Yes, I'm going to give you a recipe.
Yes.
Okay, so Travis Taylor.
Thank you, Travis.
Thank you, Travis. Gave me a recipe, a turkey meatloaf recipe at CrossFit a couple weeks ago.
Can I
And
call a turkey meatloaf a turk loaf?
You can do that if you want to.
Turk loaf.
I'm gonna let you do that.
Thanks for the turk loaf, Trav.
And it was really, really good. I loved having it in the refrigerator all week. It made great leftovers.
Yeah. It kind of bloated me a little bit, but it was
Did
worth it.
So I'm going to share it with you guys. I felt like it was a little labor intensive, just because of all the chopping. There's a lot of chopped mushrooms in it, which made it super flavorful and delicious. But if you have a little time to make a meal that takes a little bit of time, then you can
do
try
it.
It's by inspiredtaste.net, and I will share it with you guys on Jason and Tori Instagram. And you loved it. So I think it was everyone but Lundy loved it. So, but Trey loved it. Trey came home from college. He loved it too. So it was a winner. And then again, loved having some good protein in the fridge for the whole week. It made a ton. I doubled the recipe, and we ate turkey meatloaf for a week straight.
Yeah, we did. Hey, but you know what I did? I actually took turkey meatloaf, and then Tori had these roasted veggies, which you need to show what you did with those. Those are the best veggies I ever had.
Yes, I roasted, and this is shout out to Lindsay Johnson.
Lindsay, LJ.
Who showed me how to do this. You take fresh beets, carrots, and sweet potato.
Yeah.
And just chop them up, put some olive oil, salt, and pepper, and just roast it at 400 until they're roasted. I don't know. It's probably 30 minutes or something.
Yeah.
That is a good combo right there.
It was banging.
Yeah. I love roasted beets.
So what I did was I took the roasted veggies, I put that inside of it when I had the leftovers, and Tori hates when I do this. I slapped some blueberries in there.
Jason puts blueberries in everything.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Everybody, you know, when I first got the idea was when Earth Fare started selling that chicken salad with cut up grapes in it. And I was like, there's something about
You
this
know what?
that's really
I'm going to start putting
good.
blueberries in everything.
I think I'm going to put grapes and blueberries in everything. So
That's really funny.
there you go. All right. Hey, thanks for hanging out with us. This was fun. Tori and I, we love doing our own content. We love doing interviews with people, and we love doing like book reviews and stuff that we're learning.
Yeah, this was really cool. I really enjoyed this one.
So, and then maybe next podcast, Tori can sing or something, or she can yodel.
I have a special number in my heart.
She has a special number on her heart.
All right, guys. We will see you soon.
All right. If you haven't been to beautyinbattle.com, go there, take our 5-day challenge, and
Rate, review, and subscribe.
There you go. You did it. Rate, review, and subscribe.
Yeah.
Share. We forgot to say share.
Oh,
Share this out.
Do share.
Do share. All right. We'll see you next week.
See you guys.